you mentioned Dynamax's 10 general physical skills. So I agree with you. I learned about this through CrossFit. So shout out to Jim Crawley and Bruce Evans. Those are the names of the guys who make med balls that are way too expensive.
Yeah, but they're still good med balls though.
I would say that they are markedly better than any other med ball I've ever used, but they are still too expensive. But our gym bought a bunch of them, so they might as well keep it up.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just name them and then go from there. So you can break down fitness into, or they chose to break down fitness into 10 separate categories. And then in those 10 separate categories, there are a subdivision of them. And then each subdivision has a descriptor also in a category. So that's super confusing. But what we have is cardiovascular, respiratory endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility, and power. So those are your biological traits. Then you have coordination, agility, balance, accuracy, and speed. Those are your neurological.
Right. Now, I wasn't counting. Was that all 10?
I counted on my hands, but I could.
No, I trust you. Because the way I remember it, I haven't gone over these in a while, but the way I remember it was there was at least one or two that they categorized as like a mixture of both.
Yep, that's speed and power.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
So which one do you want to start with first, the biological or the neurological?
Let's start off with the biological. And right, before we even go into them, like all of them individually, CrossFit decided to use this as one of their like models of what fitness is and how to define it and how to measure it. So like their concept was across all these 10 domains, if you are, I guess you would say, above average in all of them or sufficient in all of them, whatever that means, then you would be considered fit. And if you were lacking in one of them, then you know, that's a weakness that you had to work on. So that's kind of how they broke it down. It was one of their models. I think they had a couple other models that they used to describe fitness, but that was just one of them.
Yeah. The way that they describe fitness is, in my opinion, unparalleled.
I agree.
Objective, it's measurable, and it's repeatable. And that makes it super easy. It's not just like someone who's generally healthy and they can do what they want to do with their lives and their bodies, but we can get more concise than that.
Right. And I think this was a good step towards getting more concise. So let's go. Biological.
So why is this called biological? Because this is a representation of how your body exists. I don't know if that's a good definition exactly, but this is how big your muscle is, how long your tendons are, how much force can they create in a given load, right? So let's start with the first one. So cardiovascular, that's your heart and lungs, or respiratory endurance. So the ability of the body systems to gather, process, and deliver oxygen.
Nice.
Cool. So give me a test that you would use to test someone's, basically as broad as you could, cardiovascular endurance.
This could be like a 5K run, something like that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be shorter, could be longer, but the idea is that you're breathing heavy and it's not limited by your muscular capacity.
Right. I dig it.
Yeah, and these are all hard to test individually because you always get a movement, or a test is a combination of a couple things. Like when you do a bench press, you're testing flexibility as well as strength and stamina, right? Or even coordination. So it's really difficult to test one individually, but this would be like your classic marathon runner or your rower or your swimmer.
Yep. What we all think of as cardio. Right.
And I like that they always list this one first, and at least in my head, because when someone thinks of traditional health and wellness, you know, we've talked about this, like which sport is the healthiest. They always say, oh, are you doing, you know, your cardio, 30 minutes of activity every day, you know, to make your heart beat, to make your lungs work hard. And you improve these things by overtaxing your system, and then they recover. And this is called hypercompensation.
Yes.
Hypercompensation. So it's really easy when you think about strength, right? When you lift a heavy weight, your muscles are sore, so they're damaged, and then they don't return back to baseline. They return beyond baseline. and then you repeat that pattern forever. So cardiovascular respiratory endurance is like your classic aerobic athlete.
Nice. Now, next one here is stamina, right?
Yep.
And this one is easily confusable with the first one. And I know it was for me in the beginning, but let me see. I'm sure you have a definition there, but let me see if I can come up with it. And the way I always understood it was, as you said, cardiorespiratory endurance was like oxygen, the heart and the lungs. And then stamina is more of like the metabolic processes that you have like on a cellular level. Now you tell me what you got.
So, end quote, the ability to process, deliver, store, and utilize energy. So to make it a little bit more of a useful or active definition, I thought of it as the ability to repeat submaximal muscle contractions.
Okay, I like it. I think a good I think a lot of the OPEX energy system training that they lay out, not the MAP stuff, the maximal aerobic power section, but all their other stuff that's sub aerobic. I think that's all a very appropriate training methodology for stamina, because it is a lot of repetitive can you repeat the effort sort of thing.
Yeah, I would say a combination of stamina and cardiovascular endurance training would be the most effective.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, you're doing submaximal repetitive muscle contractions, and your heart and lungs are working hard to try and allow those things to continue.
Well, yeah, you can't get away from the cardiorespiratory aspect of it. You just can't.
Yeah, so you have cardiovascular, respiratory endurance, and stamina. So do you have an athlete or a test in mind for stamina?
You could do something like I did the other day, which is probably a decent training or test of it, which was 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off on the Echo bike for 20 minutes.
Nice. And did you measure your pace over and over and over again?
I was watching the RPMs. I guess you could also watch the wattage, but I was watching the RPMs. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like to think about this one as like push-ups or sit-ups or a plank, because you're not really breathing heavy as much as you're trying to repeat the same submaximal push-up. If you can only do one push-up, then you're working on our next one. But if you're doing, a bunch of push-ups, then that's kind of that's what I think of when I think of stamina.
Okay, no, I like that. So you're thinking of it maybe in like a muscular endurance sort of way?
Yeah, I guess that's the way that I discern the two. One is more purist of cardio, and the other is a little bit more purist of muscle endurance.
Right, and I guess what I was just getting at with the bike is maybe a mixture of both there.
Still a good test of both. It just depends on how you're tackling it. Are you doing 30-second sprints? Are you doing 30 seconds of repeated force efforts?
Right, and if the cardio is super weak and it's limiting you, then you're not really going to be able to test the stamina component.
Right. But the two do go hand in hand, right? The stronger the athlete, leading us on to point number 3, the more easily it is they can handle submaximal contractions, right? So strength is the ability of a muscular unit or a combination of muscular units to apply force. So this is your 1 rep max.
Yep.
Super easy. We're not looking at range of motion, really. We're not looking at more than 1 rep. We're not looking at, how well you do the movement. It's how much weight can you move at one time.
Right. And for a test for this, I don't think there's the perfect test, but I think I like the deadlift as a good test.
Oh yeah.
Just because of what you just said there about range of motion, it takes that out of it. It starts on the ground. Like that's unambiguous, and it stops when you stand all the way up. There's no question.
If you do it in a trap bar, that's like my all-time favorite measure of strength.
Ooh, yeah, trap bar. I like that. I did some of those the other day.
They're great. It's nice because they're so simple compared to a traditional deadlift.
Especially if you have the ones, like some of them are just at the same height as an Olympic bar, but some of them have that extra handle too.
Yep.
So you can do either height. So I like that.
Yeah, perfect test.
Yeah.
We used to use it all the time at one of the gyms I would coach in. Their workout, their A1 was always trap bar deadlifts, like sets of 3 to 6, somewhere in there, because you can really determine a lot from them.
I just find that trap bar deadlift with the higher handle is a much safer movement for most people. So
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a hybrid between a squat and a deadlift too, because your positioning is a little bit different.
It's probably more like athletic. But okay.
I think strength is literally the easiest one to test because stamina has a little bit of mental fortitude to it. Like it's going to burn, but you can always do one more bodyweight squat, or you can always hang out in the plank a little bit longer. You know, so this is pick it up.
Well, it's super measurable
because
you can increment by, you know, they have those 1/4 pound plates that you can put on.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So you can really measure pretty precise.